Rook was dangling upside down from a ceiling vent, wrench in hand, grease smeared across his cheek, when the massive reptilian warlord burst through the doors below him screaming about honor violations. "I will have satisfaction," Krazoth roared, his obsidian scales reflecting the blue-green bioluminescent light of the grand negotiation hall. The 7-foot reptilian's tail slammed against the stone floor, cracking it. His yellow eyes, each the size of a fist, scanned the chamber with predatory focus. "Where is the human who insulted my lineage?" Rook froze. He'd been fixing the atmospheric regulators for the past 3 hours, completely unaware that diplomatic talks were happening below. His grip on the vent cover slipped. The metal panel clattered onto the stone platform with a deafening clang. Every eye in the chamber, and there were a lot of them, considering the insectoid delegates had compound eyes, turned upward. "Oh," Rook said, still hanging upside down, blood rushing to his head. "Hi there." Krazoth's massive clawed hand pointed directly at him. You dare hang above the warlord of the 7th Reach like common vermin?" "I dare fix your life support, actually," Rook said, trying to pull himself back into the vent. His legs kicked uselessly. "Which, you're welcome, by the way. It was set to pump out 80% nitrogen. You'd all be unconscious in about 20 minutes. Philnox, the insectoid arbiter, seated on the highest tier, stood with all 6 arms raised. Her chitinous bronze armor clicked as she moved, compound purple eyes glittering. "The human raises a valid point, Warlord Krazoth. Perhaps." Silence. Krazoth's roar shook dust from the vaulted ceiling. "This insect speaks of validity while a human dangles above sacred ground? This is precisely the disrespect I speak of." Rook's wrench slid from his fingers, spinning through the air. It bonked Krazoth directly on his scaled snout. The chamber went dead silent. "That was an accident," Rook said quickly. Krazoth's nostrils flared, smoke actually rising from them. His clawed hands clenched into fists the size of melons. "You struck Tom All, the warlord of the 7th Reach. Technically, gravity struck you. I just dropped the wrench. I demand ritual combat. I demand to finish this repair job." Rook finally pulled himself up into the vent, his voice echoing down through the opening. "Seriously, the CO2 scrubbers are failing. Give me 10 minutes, or everyone gets really sleepy and cranky." Philnox's mandibles clicked rapidly, her species' version of anxious laughter. "Warlord Krazoth, perhaps we should allow the maintenance to complete before. The human will bow or bleed." Krazoth leaped onto the circular stone platform, his massive frame shaking the floor. "I invoke the trial of submission. He will kneel before the 7th Reach or face my wrath in single combat." From the vent, Rook's voice drifted down. "Can I vote for option 3? Finish my job and go home?" Gavreen, the amphibious translator, stood near the platform's edge. His moist green-silver skin glistened under the bioluminescent lights, bulging eyes swiveling independently to track both Krazoth and the vent opening. The gills along his neck fluttered rapidly. "Honored Warlord, this human appears to be a maintenance worker, not a diplomat. Perhaps. He hangs above me. He strikes me. He refuses to bow." Each statement crescendoed, Krazoth's tail whipping back and forth, smashing into the stone seating. Chunks of rock flew across the chamber. "These are the exact crimes the other human committed." "Wait, what?" Rook's head appeared in the vent opening again, grease now smeared across his forehead. "What other human?" The massive carved doors swung open. Vex strode in, her formal negotiation suit somehow still pristine despite the chaos. She carried a data tablet and wore an expression of someone who'd given up on life approximately 40 minutes ago. "Oh good, you found Rook. Rook, stop antagonizing the warlord. I'm fixing the air," Rook protested. "The female speaks." Krazoth whirled on Vex. You are the one who refused submission." Vex walked calmly to the platform's edge, tapped her tablet, and held it up. A holographic display flickered to life showing a contract with multiple species signatures. "Warlord Krazoth, as I explained 6 times in our previous session, humans don't bow to foreign dignitaries as per Section 47 of the Interspecies Autonomy Accords, which your government signed. We show respect through verbal acknowledgement and bowing is respect. Bowing is your culture's respect. Ours is different." Krazoth's scales rippled, shifting from obsidian black to a deep, angry crimson. The temperature in the chamber rose noticeably. "You mock the 7th Reach. You hang your mails from ceilings. You strike warlords with metal weapons. That wrench thing really was an accident, Rook called down. Selthar, the avian security chief, glided down from the upper tiers. His golden-brown plumage ruffled as he landed beside Philnox, razor-sharp talons clicking on the stone. The feathered crest on his head stood fully erect in alarm. Arbiter Philnox, should we evacuate the chamber? The warlord's temperature regulation appears compromised. And whose fault is that? Philnox's 6 arms gestured wildly at the ceiling. The human clearly stated the atmospheric systems are malfunctioning. There will be no evacuation until the human bows. Vex pinched the bridge of her nose. Rook, how long until the air is fixed? 5 minutes if people stop yelling. 15 if this continues. The human delays. Krazoth's tail smashed into the platform again. A cracked spider webbed across the stone. This is intentional disrespect. Vex set her tablet down with exaggerated care. Okay, Warlord Krazoth, let's try something. What if Rook comes down, finishes the air system repairs from the ground level, and while he works, he slightly inclines his head in your general direction. Bowing is full submission. Krazoth's claws scraped across his own scaled chest, leaving white marks. The spine curves, the eyes lower, the knee touches ground. Yeah, that's not happening, Rook said cheerfully from above. I've got bad knees. Doctor's orders. Gavrin's bulging eyes somehow bulged further. His gills flapped in distress. Perhaps, honored warlord, we could accept a cultural compromise? Many species express respect through, I will accept tradition or blood. Vex picked her tablet back up. Arbiter Philnox, would you agree that Warlord Krazoth is being unreasonable? Philnox's mandibles clicked rapidly again, her 6 arms folding in a complex pattern that suggested deep discomfort. Negotiator Vex, I cannot officially declare. Unofficially then. Unofficially. Yes? Extremely. Krazoth's roar could probably be heard 3 systems over. He grabbed the platform's edge, muscles bulging beneath his scales. Conspiracy. The insects side with the humans. The amphibians cower. The birds watch and do nothing. I'm primarily here for security, Selthar said, his talons gripping his perch tighter. His golden-brown feathers flattened against his body nervously. Then provide security against human insolence. Rook's wrench. A different one appeared from the vent, followed by his arm, then his entire upper body as he leaned out precariously. Okay, quick question. If I come down there and bow, hypothetically, what happens to the whole humans don't bow treaty thing? Vex's eyes widened. Rook, don't you dare. I'm just asking, theoretically. Theoretically, you'd undermine 3 months of negotiations and set a precedent that humans will cave to aggressive posturing, which would embolden every warlord, dictator, and petty tyrant in this sector to demand the same, thereby destroying our diplomatic standing and, so, W bad? Catastrophically bad. Rook nodded thoughtfully. Cool, cool. And if I don't bow? Krazoth grinned, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Then I crush you beneath my claws and take your skull as a trophy, and your species learns that defiance of the 7th reach ends in death. Also bad, Rook observed. Also catastrophically bad, Vex agreed. Gavrin raised one webbed hand tentatively. His moist skin had gone pale green. If I may suggest a third option. No third options, Krazoth bellowed. Submission or combat? Choose. Rook pulled himself fully out of the vent, sitting on the edge with his legs dangling. Grease stained his maintenance jumpsuit, tools hung from his belt, and his hair stuck up at odd angles. He looked down at the massive, 7-foot reptilian warlord, at the gathered alien dignitaries, at Vex's horrified expression. Make me, Rook said. The silence that followed was profound. What? Krazoth's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Make me bow. Rook swung his legs casually. You want submission? Come up here and make me submit. You want me on the ground? Come get me. Philnox's compound eyes glittered with something that might have been admiration or terror, possibly both. Oh dear. Krazoth's entire body went rigid. His scales flushed from crimson to nearly white with rage. You. Challenge. The warlord of the 7th reach? I'm saying, if you want me down there bowing, you're gonna have to work for it. Rook pulled a protein bar from his pocket, unwrapped it with his teeth, and took a bite. I'm good up here, though. Nice view. Quiet, no angry lizards. Lizards? Reptilians. Sorry, my bad. Rook chewed thoughtfully. Point is, I'm not coming down, and you can't fit up here. So we're at what we call an impasse. Vex was frantically typing on her tablet. Rook, what are you doing? Buying time. How's the air? She glanced at her readings. CO2 levels dropping, temperature stabilizing. The repairs are. Working? Yeah, I fixed it while everyone was yelling. Remote override from up here. Handy. Rook took another bite of his protein bar. Warlord Krazoth, you feeling less angry now? That's the oxygen working. You've been breathing bad air for like 4 hours. Probably why you're so mad. Krazoth's scales slowly shifted from white back to crimson, then to a confused orange. What? What are you? Hypoxia makes people aggressive. Well, people and apparently 7-foot reptilian warlords. It's basic biology. Rook pulled out another tool, examined it, then tossed it down. It clattered on the platform. Arbiter Thilnox, run a medical scan. I bet his oxygen saturation is terrible. Thilnox's 6 arms moved across a nearby control panel, her chitinous armor clicking rhythmically. A holographic display materialized showing Krazoth's vital signs. Her mandibles stopped clicking. By the hive. Warlord, your blood oxygen is at 64%. That's dangerously low for your species. Lies, Krazoth growled, but his voice had less fury now, more confusion. Not lies. Science. Rook finished his protein bar, crumpled the wrapper, and tossed it into a nearby disposal chute, which he also had to fix earlier. Give it 5 more minutes. Your head'll clear. Gavrin's gills fluttered more calmly now. His skin was returning to its normal green-silver hue. I do feel significantly more composed than I did 10 minutes ago. Selther ruffled his feathers, his golden-brown plumage relaxing. As do I. My threat assessment instincts were unusually elevated. Vex stared at her tablet, then at Rook, then back at her tablet. You telling me this entire crisis was because of bad air? Mostly. Rook swung his legs. Also cultural differences and aggressive posturing, but the bad air definitely didn't help. Krazoth swayed slightly. His massive clawed hands went to his head. I.E.W., my thoughts are. W. Clearer. He looked up at Rook with those huge yellow eyes, confusion replacing rage. You knew the air was wrong. I'm a maintenance tech. It's literally my job to know when air is wrong. And you fixed it, while I threatened you. Seemed like the practical thing to do. Krazoth's scales rippled through several colors, orange, yellow, back to obsidian black. His tail stopped thrashing. You refused to bow not out of disrespect, but because. You were working? I mean, also because I don't bow to people. But yeah, I was working. Rook checked his multi-tool. Speaking of which, I still need to calibrate the backup systems. That gonna be a problem? The warlord stood very still for a long moment. Then he did something completely unexpected. He laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the chamber. The human refused the warlord of the 7th Reach to fix my air supply. Technically, I refused while fixing your air supply. Krazoth laughed harder, his whole body shaking, and challenged me to make him submit. That part was more about buying time. While eating a protein bar, I was hungry. It's been a long day. Thilnox's mandibles clicked in what was definitely amusement now. Her 6 arms gestured expressively. This is perhaps the most absurd diplomatic incident in my 50 cycles of service. Absurd? Krazoth agreed, his laughter finally subsiding. He looked up at Rook with something approaching respect in those massive yellow eyes. But effective. My head is clear now. I can see. I may have been unreasonable. May have? Vex muttered. I was breathing poison for hours. Krazoth's tail swept side to side, slowly calm, not aggressive. It affected my judgment. My honor demanded satisfaction, but my brain demanded oxygen more. He paused. The human provided oxygen. The human has a name, Rook called down. It's Rook, Rook, Rook. Krazoth tested the word. The human who refused to bow. Still not bowing. I would not ask you to. Krazoth's scales rippled with colors Rook couldn't quite identify, deep purples and blues mixing with the black. You stood by your principles while solving my problem. That is, honorable in its own way. Gavrin's bulging eyes swiveled between Krazoth and Rook, his webbed hands clasped together. Does this mean the crisis is resolved? Vex checked her tablet frantically. According to Section 91 of the Conflict Resolution Protocols, If both parties acknowledge mutual respect despite cultural differences, then yes, technically. It's resolved, Krazoth said firmly. He looked at Vex. Negotiator Vex, I apologize for my aggression. I should not have demanded your species abandon its customs. Vex blinked. I accept your apology, Warlord Krazoth, and I apologize for not recognizing the environmental factors affecting your judgment. And I apologize for dropping a wrench on your head, Rook added from above. Krazoth touched his snout where the wrench had struck. That does I may keep as a reminder. The day a human maintenance worker challenged the Warlord of the Seventh Reach and won by fixing the air. I didn't really win. I just did my job. Exactly. Krazoth's teeth showed again, but this time it seemed less threatening. You won by doing your job. Very human. Selthar's feathered crest raised again, but this time in apparent satisfaction. His golden-brown plumage smoothed as he preened one wing. Shall I record this as a successful diplomatic resolution? Please do, Philnox said, her 6 arms moving in complex patterns across her control panel. Her chitinous armor gleamed under the now properly functioning lights. And note that improved atmospheric conditions were a critical factor. Also note, Vex said, typing rapidly, that Rook is banned from all future diplomatic sessions. What? Why? Because you told a warlord to make you submit and it somehow worked. Vex looked like she might faint. That should never work. That's insane. It worked because he told the truth, Krazoth said. His obsidian scales had returned to their normal color, his yellow eyes calm. He could not bow while working. He would not bow on principle. He stated this clearly. Honesty is respectable. Honesty plus oxygen, Rook corrected. Let's not forget the oxygen. Gavrin's gills fluttered in what might have been laughter. His green-silver skin had developed small spots of gold, apparently his species' version of amusement. I shall record this incident in the translation archives. Future diplomats should know that sometimes environmental factors matter more than cultural ones, and sometimes maintenance workers are better diplomats than diplomats, Krazoth added, glancing at Vex. Hey, Vex protested. No offense intended, but the small human, I'm 5'9". The small human dangling from a ceiling solved in minutes what we could not solve in hours. Rook climbed back into the vent, his voice echoing down. Yeah, but I had an unfair advantage. I knew what the actual problem was. Which was? Everyone was oxygen-deprived and cranky. You can't negotiate when your brain isn't getting enough air. It's like trying to do math while holding your breath. Sounds of tools clanging against metal resonated from above. Okay, backup systems are now online. If the primary fails again, you've got about 6 hours of reserve. Should be enough time to fix whatever breaks. Philnox's compound eyes tracked the vent opening. The human continues to work even after the crisis is resolved. That's the thing about maintenance, Rook's muffled voice replied. Crisis or not, stuff still needs fixing. Krazoth looked at the vent, then at Vex. Is he always like this? Unfortunately, yes. Remarkable. The Warlord's tail swayed thoughtfully. The Seventh Reach could use such dedication. Would he consider employment? No, Vex and Rook said simultaneously. I'm terrible with authority figures, Rook added, present company being a prime example. Krazoth's laugh boomed again. Fair. Very fair. He turned to the assembled delegates, his massive frame no longer radiating menace but something closer to satisfaction. Arbiter Philnox, shall we resume negotiations? With proper air this time? An excellent suggestion. Philnox's 6 arms moved in coordinated patterns, pulling up holographic displays around the chamber. I believe we were discussing trade route access before the Daltnoxism. Before I lost my mind from poison air and threatened to kill a maintenance worker for not bowing, yes. Krazoth settled onto a reinforced seat near the platform. Let us proceed, with clearer heads. Vex gathered her tablet and prepared to resume her position. Rook, are you good up there? Perfect, quiet, no angry warlords, living the dream, stay in the vents, planning on it. Gavrin took his position as translator, his bulging eyes rotating to track all the speakers. His webbed hands held a translation device that hummed softly. Shall I resume the translation protocols? Please, Vex said. She pulled up the treaty documents, scrolling through pages of dense text. Now, Warlord Krazoth, regarding the Seventh Reach's proposal for exclusive access to the Meridian shipping lanes. Actually, Krazoth interrupted, his yellow eyes thoughtful, I wish to revise that proposal. The chamber went silent again. You wish to revise? Thilnox's mandibles clicked uncertainly. Her bronze chitinous armor seemed to tighten. In what manner? The human fixed my heir without demanding payment. Without requiring bows or submission, he simply did what needed doing. Krazoth's claws tapped against the armrest of his seat. This speaks to the human approach to problems. Practical, direct, honest. Vex's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Where are you going with this? I propose shared access to the meridian lanes. Humans clearly value efficiency over territorial disputes. We could learn from this. From the vent, did I just accidentally solve a trade dispute? Apparently, Vex muttered. Selther's feathered crest raised high, his golden-brown plumage fluffing with what seemed like approval. His razor-sharp talons clicked excitedly. A generous revision, Warlord Krazoth. The Council will view this favorably. The Council can view it however they wish. I view it as practical. Krazoth's scales rippled with deep blue tones. The human showed me that sometimes the solution is not domination but cooperation and proper ventilation. Definitely the ventilation, Rook called down. You were really hypoxic. Yes, thank you, Rook. We've established that. Thilnox's 6 arms moved rapidly across her controls, updating documents. If the Warlord is sincere in this revision, I can have new contracts prepared within the hour. I am sincere. Krazoth looked at Vex. Assuming the humans agree to maintain our life support systems properly. Vex smiled. I think we can arrange that for a reasonable fee. Of course. I would expect nothing less. Krazoth's teeth showed in what was definitely a grin now. Practical and direct. Very human. We try. Gavrin's gills fluttered happily, his skin now a brilliant gold green. This is a historic moment. The 7th Reach has never offered shared access to the meridian lanes before. The 7th Reach has never had a maintenance worker challenge its warlord from a ceiling vent before either. Krazoth leaned back in his reinforced seat, looking surprisingly relaxed. Today is full of firsts. From above, the sound of tools being packed away echoed through the chamber. Rook's legs appeared from the vent again, dangling casually. Okay, all systems are green. You've got full atmospheric control, backup systems are calibrated, and I've set the alerts to actually alert people before things get dangerous. You know, novel concept. We are grateful for your service, Thilnox said formally, all 6 arms pressed together in a gesture of respect. Just doing my job. Your job prevented a diplomatic war, Selthar observed, preening his wing feathers. That seems noteworthy. My job prevented everyone from suffocating. The war prevention was a bonus. Rook pulled himself back up. I'm heading back to the ship. Try not to break anything. Krazoth stood, his massive frame towering even from across the chamber. Rook of humanity, you have my respect. You need not bow to receive it. Cool. You got my respect too. Try to check your oxygen levels before threatening people next time. A wise suggestion. Rook's head disappeared into the vent. His voice echoed one final time, and Warlord? Your scales look way better in obsidian black than angry crimson. Just saying. Krazoth touched his chest, where the scales had recently been flushed with rage. Noted. The vent cover slid back into place with a metallic scrape. The sound of Rook crawling through the maintenance tunnels faded away, leaving the diplomats in a chamber that now felt considerably more peaceful than it had 20 minutes ago. Vex sat down at the negotiation table, pulled up the revised trade agreements, and shook her head slowly. I'm putting in for a raise. You deserve one, Thilnox agreed, her mandibles clicking with amusement. You managed to keep everyone alive while your subordinate insulted a warlord. Rook's not my subordinate, he's maintenance, completely different department. Vex scrolled through the documents. But yes, he did insult you quite thoroughly, Warlord. He called me a lizard, Krazoth said thoughtfully, and told me my scales looked better in certain colors and refused to submit, and dropped a wrench on my head. Technically, the wrench was an accident. True. The Warlord's yellow eyes gleamed. Everything else was deliberate honesty. I find I prefer that to false diplomacy. Gavrin set down his translation device, his webbed hands folding together. Shall we proceed with the revised agreements then? Yes, Krazoth said. Let us proceed. With proper air, clear heads, and no humans dangling from the ceiling to distract us. Though that was entertaining, Selthar added, his talons clicking against his perch. Highly entertaining, Philnox agreed. Vex began reading the revised proposal, her voice steady and professional despite the absurdity of the past hour. The delegates settled into their positions, displays flickering with updated trade routes and resource allocations. The grand negotiation hall filled with the calm murmur of actual productive negotiation. In the equipment corridor outside, Rook emerged from the maintenance tunnels, his jumpsuit now thoroughly covered in grease and dust. He pulled out his work tablet, checking the remaining repair orders for the day. 17 more items on the list. He sighed, grabbed his toolkit, and headed toward the next malfunctioning environmental control panel 3 sections over. The narrow corridor's dim orange emergency lighting cast long shadows as he walked, his boots clanging against the metal grating floor. Exposed pipes ran along both walls, some hissing with steam, others carrying coolant with a low mechanical hum. Rook paused at junction 23, consulted his tablet, then took a left toward the secondary power distribution center. Halfway there, his communicator chirped. He tapped it without slowing his pace. "Rook here. This is Station Chief Morven." The voice was gruff, mechanical, a cyborg, if Rook remembered correctly. "I just received a very interesting report about an incident in the Grand Negotiation Hall. Yeah, the air was bad. I fixed it. You also apparently challenged a warlord to single combat. That's a strong word for what happened. I more. Suggested he couldn't reach me." A sound that might have been a laugh crackled through the comm. "The diplomatic corps is having a collective panic attack. Vex sent me 8 messages in the last 5 minutes. The air was literally poisoning everyone. What was I supposed to do? Most people would evacuate the chamber. Most people aren't responsible for fixing the atmospheric systems." Rook stopped at a wall panel, popped it open, and examined the circuitry inside. Burned out relay. He started pulling tools from his belt. Besides, it worked out fine. Everyone's breathing, nobody died, and apparently I solved a trade dispute. Win-win-win. You told a warlord to make you bow. I was buying time for the oxygen levels to normalize. That's not in your job description. Neither is preventing diplomatic incidents, but here we are. Rook pulled the damaged relay free, tossed it into his recycling bag, and started installing a replacement. "Is there a point to this call, Chief? Or are you just checking in on my social life?" Another mechanical laugh. "Just wanted to confirm you're still alive. Carry on with your repairs." "And Rook?" "Yeah? Next time, maybe warn people before you antagonize heavily armed warlords." "Where's the fun in that?" The comm clicked off. Rook finished the relay replacement, closed the panel, and continued down the corridor. His tablet showed the power distribution was now stable. Good. One less thing to worry about. He reached the secondary power distribution center, a small room filled with humming generators and blinking status lights. The air here was warmer, the vibration from the machinery creating a constant low rumble that Rook found oddly soothing. He pulled up the diagnostic reports on his tablet. Fluctuations in the output regulator. Classic problem. As he worked, he thought about Krazoth's laugh, the way the warlord's scales had shifted from rage white back to that deep obsidian black. The genuine respect in those huge yellow eyes once the oxygen started flowing properly. Most people saw angry aliens and assumed the anger was the problem. Rook saw faulty equipment and fixed the actual source. It was simpler that way. The regulator repair took 8 minutes. Rook tested it twice, confirmed stable output, then marked it complete on his tablet. 16 more items to go. He grabbed his toolkit and headed back into the corridor, already mentally preparing for the next repair. Somewhere behind him, in the grand negotiation hall, diplomats were probably still negotiating. Trade routes, territories, cultural exchanges, all the complicated stuff that kept the station running on a political level. But none of it worked without air. And that was Rook's job. Simple, direct, honest, just like he'd told the warlord. Back in the grand negotiation hall, negotiations continued smoothly for another 2 hours. Krazoth signed the revised trade agreements with what Vex could only describe as enthusiasm. Philnox declared it a historic breakthrough. Gavreen translated everything flawlessly, his gills no longer fluttering in distress. Selther maintained perfect security, his talons relaxed, his golden brown feathers smooth, and nobody threatened to kill anyone. Vex marked that as a significant improvement. As the session concluded, Krazoth approached her, his massive scaled frame moving with surprising grace. "Negotiator Vex, I have a request. Of course, Warlord. When you see the human Rook again, tell him the 7th Reach owes him a debt." Vex blinked. A debt for fixing the air? For reminding me that strength is not always about domination. Krazoth's yellow eyes held steady on hers. Sometimes strength is hanging from a ceiling, refusing to move, and fixing what is broken while everyone else argues. I'll pass that along. Good. Krazoth turned toward the massive carved doors, his tail sweeping behind him. And tell him his assessment was correct. My scales do look better in obsidian black. With that, the warlord of the Seventh Reach strode from the chamber, leaving behind a trail of amused diplomats and one very confused human negotiator. Vex pulled out her communicator. Rook? Busy. What's up? Krazoth says, the Seventh Reach owes you a debt. A pause. Then, cool. Can they pay it in better atmospheric regulators? These ones keep breaking. Vex laughed despite herself. I'll ask. Appreciate it. Gotta go. This power coupling is about to explode. The comm clicked off. Vex shook her head, gathered her materials, and left the grand negotiation hall. Somewhere in the maintenance tunnels, Rook was preventing an explosion. Somewhere in the diplomatic wings, trade agreements were being filed and celebrated. And somewhere in between, the station kept running because people like Rook fixed the things that actually mattered. The air, the power, the water, the unglamorous, essential things. Vex made a note to approve Rook's raise request. He'd earned it, even if he'd never admit it. 3 days later, a shipment arrived at the station addressed specifically to Rook. The delivery manifest listed it as diplomatic gift, priority handling from the Seventh Reach. Rook stared at the massive crate in the loading bay, wrench still in hand from his current repair job. This is ridiculous, he muttered. Open it, Vex urged, standing beside him with her tablet. Krazoth personally authorized the shipment. Rook pried open the crate with a crowbar. Inside, nestled in protective foam, were 6 brand-new atmospheric regulators, top-of-the-line models that cost more than Rook made in a year. Each one gleamed with pristine metallic surfaces and advanced sensor arrays. A handwritten note in careful, precise script sat on top. Rook picked it up and read aloud, "For the human who values proper air over false respect. May your equipment never fail again. The scales remain obsidian. Krazoth, Warlord of the Seventh Reach." Vex covered her mouth, trying not to laugh. He actually did it. He paid his debt in atmospheric regulators. Damn good ones, too. Rook ran his hand over one of the units, examining the specifications. These have predictive failure algorithms, auto-calibration, redundant safety systems. Chino, he looked up at Vex. These are military grade. Apparently saving a warlord from hypoxia-induced rage gets you military-grade equipment. I didn't save him. I just fixed the air. Rook. Vex put a hand on his shoulder. You prevented a war and secured a trade agreement by being yourself. That's worth celebrating. I prevented suffocation. The war thing was incidental. Take the win. Rook looked at the regulators again, then at the note, then back at Vex. A small smile crossed his face. Okay, maybe I'll take this win. These things are amazing. Good, now install them before something else breaks. Already planning it. Rook grabbed one of the units, hefting its weight. Station's gonna run so smooth after this. And it did. The new regulators performed flawlessly. The atmospheric systems maintained perfect stability. The station crew stopped getting random headaches from minor oxygen fluctuations. 3 separate departments sent Rook thank you messages without knowing why the air had suddenly improved. Rook didn't tell them. He just kept doing his job, fixing things, preventing disasters, hanging from ceiling vents, being human. And somewhere in the Seventh Reach, Krazoth told the story of the maintenance worker who challenged a warlord with 2 words and a protein bar, and won through the simple act of competence. The legend spread, not because it was dramatic or heroic, but because it was true. And truth, Rook had learned, was more powerful than any bow could ever be.